Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and I had someone ask me a question. I think it was in the Q&A thread, and rather than try to answer that in the Q&As this week, I'm like, let's go ahead and just jump into this general topic because someone said, hey, I want to run a 5x5 program. How long should I run it? 3 months, 6 months, a year? And that's kind of the interesting question. People always ask this question of how long should they run a program. And you know what? You want to know what one of the biggest causes of people stalling in their gains, plateauing, going 6 months without making any gains? People who haven't finished their noob gains. And when I mean finish your noob gains, I mean if you haven't put on 15 to 20 pounds of muscle already, if you're not benching well over 225 for reps, you're not squatting 300 for reps. Yeah, I said reps, not maxes. If you're not at that point, and you have stalled at all in your progress, I can tell you the majority of the time, if they're not starving themselves, it's because they're program hopping. It's because people try some program they saw somewhere, they run it for 30 days, 90 days, whatever, 6 weeks, and they hop over to a new program. If you've run 4 different programs, 5 different programs already, and you haven't hit those basic numbers I've thrown out already, and you've run 5 different programs, it might be time for you to reevaluate your approach. You're a chronic program hopper. Now, what I'm going to say here, as far as how long should you run a program to assess it for you personally, 1 year. 1 year. You need to run any program that you try for a year. The only exception being like a peaking program. But at this point, if someone has enough experience that they're competing in anything, I don't care whether it's powerlifting, shot put, bodybuilding, whatever you're competing in, you probably already know this. I don't need to tell you this. So barring a peaking program for a specific competitive endeavor, you should not run a program less than a year. You can't assess your individual response to a training program without running it for a year. Now, a lot of people are going to say, whoa, well, what if it doesn't work? Well, what do you mean, what if it doesn't work? Why would you run a program that doesn't work? And people say, well, everyone's different. Yeah, everyone's different, as in some programs are only good for a certain person and they're great for 2 out of 3 other people. But any program that is a great program will be good for every person. In other words, if a program is well written and it's a great program all around, and a lot of people have gotten really, really good results on it, like better results than these crappy programs you see coming out of bodybuilding magazines, then every person will make pretty good gains on that program. It doesn't matter who they are. The only difference is that for you to assess if a program, if you're a really good responder to a program or just a good responder to a program, is to run it long term. And so here's the question I would ask people. If you see a program and it's put out by someone, and I don't care what the program is, if that program doesn't look good enough for you to run for a year, don't waste your time with it. In other words, if it's not a program that other people have run long term successfully, why would you even consider it? Meaning, if it's not a proven successful program and you don't have the background to write one, and the person who wrote the program doesn't have the background to write one, why would you consider it? And what I mean there is not some silly gimmicky fad program that some people ran and a bunch of people reported good gains on in the first couple months, because if you're a noob or you've never trained particularly hard on anything remotely structured, any structured program is going to give you gains. Any structured program. I don't care what it is. So that's not necessarily an indicator that it's a good program. What you need to do before you consider running a program, go check and see how many people have run that program for at least a year. If you can't find training logs and examples online of people who have run that specific program by that specific coach for a year, not on that coach's website, meaning if this is their private testimonial page, don't always take that, but people's individual logs. You should be able to find logs of any vastly successful program. If 5,000 people have run a program successfully, you're going to find a couple dozen training logs online. with people's 1 year results, their 6 months results and stuff on there. If you can't, then you shouldn't even be considering that program. You shouldn't even be considering it. And any program that you're going to go buy, before you jump into the investment trap, go look at the free version of it first. Now, if you want to pay a coach because you saw their program online somewhere free, and you realize it's a good program and you want them to get paid for their work, and you still choose to do that, that's fine. But I promise you, every one of these YouTubers, if you look around, you can find their programs for free. You can find their programs for free online. They're all available. If anyone has bought it anywhere in the past, it has been republished for free somewhere. And if you still say, hey, well, I want them to get paid for their work, it looks like a strong program, that's fine. But you need to find testimonials for it, and you need to read over the program first. If that program isn't well structured in its methodology in a way that makes sense, you shouldn't even be considering running it. That should be your 2 criteria. So here's the question I would ask people. Once you've settled these 2 criteria for determining that it is in fact a good program, why wouldn't you run it for a year? Because if dozens of other people or hundreds or thousands of people have run a program successfully for 1 year and they made continual progress, meaning at the 1 year mark they were doing better than they were at the 6 month mark, then it's obviously a good program. It's a structured, well-written, long-term program. In which case you decide, hey, this program might be for me. You look at it, you look at the methodology, and you say, okay, this is a program I could stand to run for a year straight. Then you jump in and do it. But if it doesn't look like a program in which people have had results on that, and it doesn't look like a program that you would be willing, that you think you could stick out for a year, you need to find something else. Because I'm going to tell you right now, nothing will shortchange your gains faster than hopping programs every few months. In other words, if I were to give you guys 5 different really good programs, whether it's a mixture of any of my free programs or several other YouTubers or Bill Starr's program or Mark Ripetoe's programs, any of these proven programs, and you were to rotate through 5 of them in 1 year, I promise you, I absolutely guarantee you that you will gain less muscle and less strength than had you picked any one of those 5 programs and ran it all the way through. Because you're going to go through a phase with every new program where you have to readapt. You're going to see certain accommodations that have to be made for you to adapt to the changes in the program, and during that window you're not going to progress. In some cases you'll move backwards a little bit because you're hopping programs that aren't structured into a flow. In other words, if anytime you change what you're doing, and good programs account for this, because I have periodized programs. I've got a linear periodization program, right? It's structured in such a way that each phase blends into the next so that you transition into continual progress. When you just randomly change a program with a totally different methodology that's not set up to do that sequentially, you have downtime to where you don't make gains, at least a week. So you're going to have a month out of the year where you don't make gains instead of making gains for the full 12 months. You'll get less out of it. So program hopping is a really bad idea. It's a really bad idea. So, I mean, I think that should be your baseline of saying, if I want to run a program and it's worthy, it's well written, it's got good results in other people, long-term results, then you need to stick it out for a year. And a lot of people are going to say, particularly noobs, are going to go, man, a year, that's a long time. What do you think this training thing is? I mean, do you honestly think that because you see something online with these amazing transformations, that's how it works? It's not how it works. This is a lifelong process, all right? Your training and your fitness and resistance training and gaining muscle and changing body composition and changing, this is a lifelong process. And I promise you right now, any goals that you think you want to obtain in the gym, you're probably not going to reach them in your first year. Realistically, I mean, you might think you will. You might have a certain thing that you want to reach. But the majority of people who you see that their results are what you want, I promise you those people have been training several years, unless they're really genetically gifted or they jumped on a bunch of drugs. It probably took them several years to reach their goals. So when you understand that in the context that your goals that you think you're going to reach in 6 months are probably 3-year goals, 4-year goals, 5-year goals, 10-year goals, it starts to make sense that you're going to want to stick out programs for at least a year. to really assess how you personally respond to that program. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.